Hello, welcome to Open Micotomy. Today we're going to cover how to handle one of open mic's most crucial pivotal moments, handling a bad set. Stick around. So, you bombed. You have reached the most pivotal point, the most perfect rite of passage for any comedian working. It's going to happen to every comedian, whether or not they say that they have failed or not. It sucks, it hurts, but I promise, if you're watching this, believe me when I say, you're gonna appreciate your bombs almost as much as you're going to appreciate your successes at some point. Not because, you're happy that you failed, but because you're happy that you learned from your failures. So that's what we're gonna be here to do today. I'm gonna teach you how to handle your bombs by learning from your failures. So step number one, honestly, just calm down. Everything's gonna be fine. No one is going to remember your bad sets. I have seen hundreds of other people's sets. I mean, countless. I have seen people for, I've gone to I don't know how many open mics. I don't remember anybody's spectacular failures. I've seen a couple very funny failures, but I never saw that person again. Those people kind of ran out. I never got to see them succeed, so stick around after a bad set, and people are going to remember your successes much more than they're going to remember your failures, as long as you continue and you work hard. If you go up and you eat it and you never come back, people will talk about that. So keep that in mind. But if you're actually trying, believe me, no one's going to be like, oh man, did you see so-and-so? They totally bit it. No one really cares. We've all had bad sets. So calm down, take a deep breath, understand that this happens to everybody. You're not any different. Everybody bombs. It's totally fine. One thing that helps me anytime that I've had a bad set is I love laughing at myself. It's the best way to get over something. If you're way more hard on yourself than a crowd was on you, nobody can beat you down. It's definitely not, don't totally destroy yourself. Be like, oh, I'm terrible. I'm a bad comedian. I'm never gonna go up again. Just be like, yeah, I totally ate it. Did bad. Wasn't great. Totally bombed. Just shrug it off. It's gonna happen again. I promise. I almost look forward to my bombs at some points. You get to the point where sometimes you get into really good stride and things are going well and you haven't really done anything particularly new and nothing is particularly going difficult for you. And then all of a sudden, you eat it. You have a bad set and it resets you. And you're like, oh my God, how am I going to how am I gonna switch up my status? Like if I did this bad, it triggers something in your brain when you fail to make you want to work harder. I know that I used to do sports, and if I would do bad in sports, I would give up on sports. When I would have a bad set, however, the thing that I wanted more than anything was to prove that person wrong. I would start working so much harder, and that was where I realized the value of a failure can come in with open mic comedy. So calm down, understand the value of failure, and get ready for the next one. Step number two. Think about where things did go wrong. Sometimes things aren't exactly going to go in your favor, and you can't always blame yourself for everything that goes wrong. However, you do need to take responsibility. Sometimes things don't go in your favor, but it's still your job to make things go in your favor. If the person before you didn't do great, sometimes that's going to put a bad energy on stage and you have to work harder to get the energy back up. If you don't do that, you're going to have a bad time. Is it your fault that the person before you didn't do well? No, but it's still your job to do well. So when it comes to a bad hand, that just means you have to work harder. You can't let the environment dictate how well you're going to do that night. Also, think about your material. What part of your set didn't go in your favor? Was it your opening joke that didn't hook them? You didn't have them right away, people stopped paying attention. Or was it somewhere in the middle where you said something and people were like, oh, I don't know about that one, Chief, and then they kind of tuned out? Or were you too low energy? Think about where you lost the crowd. Start focusing on your mistakes and don't hyperfixate on them to the point where like, oh, I did this badly, I'm such a failure. No, think about what you could have done better. And you can always do better. You should be doing this after every set, no matter how good you did. Always think about what you could have done better. Believe me, there have been times when I've had the crowd on my side and I've done well, and I've gotten off stage and been like, I messed that up. I didn't do well. Like I didn't like myself, and people, and you hang out with other comics. Sometimes they'll understand it. They'll be like, yeah, You weren't on your rhythm. It just depends on what you want to do. So even if you think you did badly, don't worry about it. Instead, focus on what you can do better. Don't focus on the negative side of failure. That's pretty much the general theme of this video, is take what was given to you and work on it. And number 3, as much as you're going to want to, do not blame the crowd. Yes, there are bad crowds, 100%. And as I said before, you can't always have a good hand. Sometimes you're gonna be the first person and you have a cold crowd. Especially if you're an open mic host. But if you're an open mic host, I'm assuming you're probably already used to this, so you can probably ignore most of what I'm saying. However, if it's your first time hosting, or if you're not used to being the first person on stage, if you're the person who's not used to warming people up, and you don't have that energy already built for you, and you don't get it, oof, it's an energy sucker. You can say that that's a bad crowd, or you can look at yourself and be like, oh, I did a bad job. I didn't do my thing. There's no such thing as a bad crowd. That's not true. There are such things as bad crowds, but there's also ways to fight those bad crowds. I've had times when I've been at open mics and there's been nothing. It's just a room is not paying attention. You know what you have to do? You have to hype yourself up. You have to hype them up with you. It doesn't matter if you look like an idiot while you're doing it, because guess what? If you're a stand-up comedian, at some point, you're gonna look like a jackass. Happens to everybody. A bad crowd is going to be a factor in any stand-up situation. Whether or not you're good or bad, a bad crowd isn't exactly an excuse for you to throw at yourself to excuse your bomb. Yes, it helps, and sometimes there legitimately is nothing you can do. I'll also put that up there. So if you're too worried about, your failures being 100% your fault, there is a margin of error, there is a margin where it is not your fault. However, don't look at it like that every time, otherwise you're never going to improve. Instead, always think about what you could be doing better. So when you have a bad crowd, don't blame the bad crowd. Think about how you could have engaged the crowd differently. Think about what you could have done to maybe hype up their energy. Never use the crowd as an excuse for your bad set. It's extremely easy to do so because a lot of the time it really is just people in the crowd not paying attention, heckling you, talking over you, not really caring that you're on stage. It happens, and that makes it's soul-sucking to be on stage and have nobody pay attention. So that's where you come in and think, how can I get people to pay attention to me? How can I get on stage and make all eyes be on me? So think about that rather than, oh, the crowd was just not paying attention that night. The crowd the crowd wasn't engaged with the stage. Sure they weren't. I'm sure that that happens all the time. What could you have done differently to make them pay attention? What makes you so special as a comedian that makes people go, hey, shut up, I'm trying to watch this guy because he's got something different going on. Or he's got these, I want to hear what he's got to say. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what you're saying, it's how you say it. If you're high energy on stage and you're loud and you're bombastic and you're energetic and you're moving around, you're not freaking out, you're not pacing, you're not moving too much. If you're actively engaging the audience in a way that makes them want to pay attention to you, they're going to pay attention to you. That works most of the time. Again, I'm not gonna disregard the fact that sometimes a bad crowd is a bad crowd is a bad crowd. But don't always blame the crowd. Figure out what you could have done differently. So those are some 3 simple steps that how I personally deal with a bomb. I know that it's awful, it doesn't feel good, but instead of letting it bother you and getting in your head, always use a failure as a way to propel yourself forward. So if you think that I missed anything, or if you have any personal tips on how to avoid a bomb, leave them in the comments. I might go back to this video and have some tips on how to avoid eating it on stage. But I think that this is a good starter video for, hey, calm down, not a big deal, do these things instead. So if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. It'll help me out a lot. Ring that bell because I'm going to be having videos coming in every week with tips and tricks on open mic comedy. Thank you very much. I'm Matt with Open Microtomy. Not gonna put that in there, hold on.